Okay, so we are at the last lecture of this semester course. Of course, we are terminating prematurely because the entire semester we have done very slowly. So in this, um, rather than lecture, I would say speech, which is more on information and less on lesson. Okay, so listen to this carefully and accordingly plan your course of action as the time comes. Okay, so in this lecture or speech, whatever you say, I will cover only a little material, that also in a cursory manner, in the spirit of information, and discuss with you in general the past, present and future of this course, and how it is evolving, and well, I'll give you bad news and one or two good news related to the course. So let me share the screen with you so that I have a little draft in front of me, which will try to keep the discussion on a streamlined path. So this course, optimization, this subject is something which I myself admit as difficult. Now, my encounter, my experience with this subject is 3 decades old. In 1992, I studied this as a student. That makes it 3 decades. And my involvement with this course, with this number, ME752 at IIT Kanpur, is also something like 2 decades old. And over these 2 decades, I mean, almost 2 decades. Okay. Over this period, I have developed this course slowly, and still I consider that this course is a difficult course. I always say that it is interesting, it is beautiful, but I would never say that it is an easy course. And that is why I understand when uh, students find it difficult and they are slow in learning it. Why is it a difficult course for you people? It is the same reason why it was a difficult course for me in 1992. Typically, a student joins this course without an adequate background on the prerequisite subject matter. And that is why it is one of the difficult subjects. Now, in this semester, this is a unique semester. You know, this is a unique year actually, as you all know. So, till now, I have attempted to cover as much of the intended syllabus as I can do. But whatever I cover, I try to cover well. Now, in earlier years also, I was covering it well, but in earlier years, it was easy. The notes and slides that I have prepared for this course are so comprehensive, so well prepared, that many students use the course website, my course website, in lieu of a book. However, there is one very big problem. There was a very big problem with that material. The material was scattered into 3 parts. One was as developed for this course. Second was the slides that I prepared for actually for the mathematics course as well as book. And the third part was in my head, which I used to bring down in the discussion and on the blackboard in class. Now I felt that this scattered material, and now since the mathematics slides were there, whatever material was there in that, I did not bother to put it in the optimization course related slides. And that is why in the classroom, typically I used to open both, open two different tabs, and then I used to shift from one to the other as need arose. I felt that in the online delivery, this will confuse you and you will not be able to navigate properly through the two sources, and whatever I otherwise do in Blackboard, it would be trouble. That is why I decided that for this semester, I try to produce the whole thing in one place in a systematic and detailed manner with enough notes so that afterwards you can go through them at your leisure with full understanding. So this is what I tried, and I did not bother about how much of the course I succeed in covering, whether it is 100% or 80% or what. I just started and I have tried to cover well. Now, as it turns out, um, what I till now covered is actually something that I typically cover in 6 weeks or just up to the mid-sem exam. Okay, that means half the course I have actually covered. Okay, however, this time because I was making a fresh, comprehensive, detailed notes, so quite a few topics have gone in a little more detail to make more sense to you, clear sense to you. And if that much detail is taken in an actual classroom like earlier years, it would take something like 8 or 9 weeks. That is my estimate. Okay. Now we are declaring the course over, which basically means that the exam will cover till that point. That doesn't mean the subject has only this much. Subject has much more. We'll discuss that briefly. Now, what was supposed to come immediately after what we covered in the last cache of lectures, lectures 22, 23, 24. After that, as I had already notified, the next topic was convex programming. And here, in an informative sense, I'm telling you what is the main point of convex programming. Convex inequality constraint functions and linear equality constraint functions, that is, every Gj is convex function, every Hi is linear function. So such set of constraints define a convex domain. What is a convex domain? That you know. If 2 points belong to the domain, then the line segment joining them also belong to the domain completely. That is the sense of convex domain. Okay. Now, if you have such a domain in which you want to minimize a convex objective function, then you say that the problem is a convex programming problem or convex optimization problem. And the special thing about convex optimization problem is that for such a problem, KKT conditions are not only necessary but sufficient. So the gap between necessary and sufficient conditions gets condensed. Okay. So the same KKT conditions are not only necessary but also sufficient for a minimum. Not only that, every local minimum is also a global minimum. That means the solution does not have to be unique. There can be infinite solutions. I mean, either unique or infinite. There is no possibility of 2 solutions or 3 solutions. No, either unique or infinite solutions. And all such minima are connected together in a convex subset of the domain over one line segment or over a convex area, something like that. Okay. So these are the special things about convex programming problem, and solving them is relatively easier. Now, the next, now what I am putting here is what I planned as the next cache of lectures, for which I actually prepared, but at this stage I felt it's not a good idea to give you that new cache of lectures and create tension in your mind that the NSEM exam syllabus has suddenly increased. Okay, it should not be done. I mean, that's unfair. Anyway, the next topic was sensitivity. Now, what is sensitivity? That we discussed long back. Now, if there is a parameter which we held constant, now if we change the parameter, how does the solution change? So that is sensitivity. So sensitivity to a parameter is measured by the partial derivative of the Lagrangian with respect to the parameter. That is, if the parameter is changed a little, then how the minimum value of the function will change. Now there are two steps of change. One, because the parameter has changed, so the solution point will change. And since the solution point has changed, therefore the function value will change. Now these two-step thing can be condensed in one step if you take the partial derivative of the Lagrangian with respect to the parameter. Okay, this is how you evaluate sensitivity of the solution. Now sensitivity to a constraint is given straight by the corresponding Lagrange multiplier. Okay. In fact, this theme has come once in a while in our discussion of the optimality criteria also, because if the Lagrange multiplier is 0, that means there is no effort needed to satisfy the constraint. That means the sensitivity is 0. Okay. On the other hand, if the Lagrange multiplier is non-zero, that means there is some amount of compromise needed to satisfy the constraint. The minimum value went a little higher because you had the compulsion to satisfy the constraint. Okay, so that is the way it gets interpreted. Now the third topic which I plan to discuss in this next cache is duality, and it's a very interesting concept. I I actually feel a little sad that this convex programming and the duality, these topics, I could not cover. In fact, to tell you the fact, after the last cache of lectures, I had to cover last few lectures of the other course that I am teaching. And by the time I covered that with all the negativity around, it became very, very difficult for me to work in a concentrated manner. And I understand how difficult it is for you to learn a new subject in a concentrated manner. So understand that that sense of empathy is there, and that will reflect also in the question setting and grading, as some of you have requested me through emails and whatever. I mean, for that, you don't have to tell us specifically. We are sensitive to those issues. Anyway, so what is duality? Now, we discussed earlier that Lagrangian at the minimum point, at the solution point, the Lagrangian has a minimum with respect to x coordinates, not the lambda mu coordinates. Okay. Now, the path to duality is by minimizing the Lagrangian only with respect to the x variables, original variables, keeping the Lagrange multipliers as constant. If you do that, then with respect to x, you will be minimizing it. Now, what you will evaluate, the minimum value, the so-called minimum value, will actually appear in terms of lambdas and mu's, because the x star value you will put there, so x variable will vanish from the thing. It will turn out to be in terms of lambdas and mu's. So it will become the minimum of the Lagrangian will turn out to be minimum value of the Lagrangian will turn out to be the function, a function of Lagrange multipliers. This function of Lagrange multipliers is called the dual function, and hence the Lagrange multipliers are called the dual variables. And then you say that the x is the set of primal variables. Okay, and now for an optimization problem, constraint optimization problem, you can define a dual problem. Okay, original problem was to minimize with respect to x. The dual problem will be to maximize with respect to lambda and mu. And the solution of the original problem, the primal problem, and the solution of the dual problem will match together at the Lagrangian saddle point. So whichever way you go. So this is the sense of duality. You see, if you have a problem to determine the dimension or the ratios in the dimensions of a rectangle, such that for a given area, the perimeter is, or say for a given perimeter, the area is maximum. So, or the other problem is that for a given area, the perimeter is minimum. So, how to enclose a given area within a minimum perimeter? The dual of this problem is how to enclose maximum area within a given perimeter. So these are two dual problems, okay, dual to each other. So that way, every minimization problem can be cast in another manner as through its dual, which will be a maximization problem. So one alternative way of solving the original problem is to solve the dual problem. Of course, this operates under certain conditions, which we are omitting. I'm talking about the broad things. Okay, and both solution processes would lead to Lagrangian saddle point. And now, rather than going into the methods, we will discuss briefly the structure and classification of methods to solve nonlinear optimization problems. I mean, constraint optimization problems. So for that, let me open this single slide document. Yes. So for a problem of n variables with m active constraints, the solution methods are classified into four families of methods or four kinds of methods based on in which domain the method operates, with special reference to the dimension of that space. Okay. The simplest kind of methods is penalty methods, which operates in the same X space only. Okay. The little trick that is played here is that with the objective function, you add a constant times a penalty function, and you define the penalty function in such a manner that the penalty function is 0 if the constraints are all satisfied, and the penalty function is positive if, I mean, and increasing as the constraint violation is more. Okay. So for example, take this penalty function. If the constraints are all satisfied, then this is 0 and this is also 0, because if g is 0, then it is same, whichever g is 0, it will be 0, and if some g is negative, then this 0 will be dominant max. So if all the constraints are satisfied, then this penalty function value will be 0. If some constraint is violated, whether it is one of these guys or one of these guys, then it will start going positive. It can never be negative. So inclusion of this term here will mean that the unconstrained optimization methods, your ordinary methods which you know, conjugate gradient or quasi-Newton or whatever, they will obviously try to avoid places where this goes high. Okay, and for that the penalty parameter c has to be pretty large. Okay, and now penalty methods are actually the simplest kinds of methods, because you don't need to learn new methods to satisfy the constraints, but you put them in terms of penalty. Okay, and use the old unconstrained methods. So this is the simplest kind of methods, but then you have to slowly play around with C, so that in the initial iterations, C is not very large and doesn't create ill conditioning. And in the later iterations, C becomes large, so that this finally becomes 0 all the constraints are satisfied. So this is the kind of methods which operate in the primal space, original space, not primal space, the X space, the variable space, the design space. Okay. Now, another kind of methods is primal methods. This operates in the primal space. There is only feasible points and only feasible directions. So since only feasible directions, so it will operate on a tangent subspace of dimension n minus m. Okay? So works only in feasible domain, restricting steps to the tangent plane. One example is this. There are other methods also in this class. Now, one bad thing about this kind of methods is that to begin with, you have to have a feasible point. Okay. If you don't know how to figure out a point which is, forget about optimality, which is at least feasible, then you cannot start the method. Okay. So that's a problem. A primal method has to be primed. That is a very funny thing. The good thing about it is that once you start, then after 8 iterations, suppose you do not continue further. Okay. Optimal point has not been reached, but you just after 8 iterations or after 80 iterations, you stop, whatever, even though you have not converged. But whatever solution you have now in hand is at least feasible. And certainly not a very bad solution because it has come after so many iterations. So a premature point, a premature solution is also a usable solution, if not optimal. So suboptimal solutions, but feasible, you can get from here. Other methods do not guarantee you that. The third family of methods are called dual methods. The philosophy of dual methods is that the real mystery, the real information of a constraint optimization problem is actually contained in the values of the Lagrange multipliers. Because which constraint is how much important, that is actually coded in a way in the correct values of the Lagrange multipliers. Okay. And we have seen already in the example of KKT conditions that if you can work out which constraints are active at the final solution point, then part of the solution is done. Okay. And then it is just routine work. So one step more is that not only which constraints are active, but what are the corresponding Lagrange multiplier values. If you know that, then the rest of the job is more or less simple. So the dual methods, which operate in the space of space Rm, in the space of lambdas and active mu's, they transform the problem to the space of Lagrange multipliers and try to maximize the dual. Okay. So the primal dual operate together because in order to define the dual function, you need to solve a minimization problem in the primal variables. So they operate together, and by the time you get hold of the correct values of the Lagrange multipliers, lambda star, mu star, you are actually almost done. Okay. The fourth family of methods is called the Lagrange methods, which operate on the complete space. Okay. That is original variables and the Lagrange multipliers together. Now, basically, Lagrange methods try to solve equations appearing in the KKT conditions directly, and the path to that solution of the KKT condition is taken through some sort of descent steps so that at the same time, at the end, the solution satisfies the inequalities involved there also, and also the second order conditions. So the descent steps are important. So not exactly the way we solve the KKT conditions in the simple kind of problems, but through proper descent methods. And one of the most popular methods called sequential quadratic programming actually operates like that over this kind of method, this family of methods. And the MATLAB function fmincon actually uses sequential quadratic programming. Okay, so this is the full spectrum of the kinds of methods which are generally employed to solve constraint optimization problems. In normal semesters, in the second half of the course, we deal with actual methods of that kind. But after the semester, typically people forget about it. So I tried to concentrate in the semester on that much which you typically remember. Okay. Okay, let us come back to where we were operating. Now, if it is a matter of the semester course, exam grade, then more or less we are done, and next Monday you will be completely done, and so on. It's over. However, uh, when you take a course, your intention is to learn the subject matter. Now, the half which we have left out in this semester is important, is interesting, is worth learning. Now, how do you learn that, when, and why at all? So the rest of the material, if you are interested, you can learn through your efforts, and I will point to you the material which you can get in a coherent manner in some place. I mean, there are other books and websites where you get the material, but I am right now telling you the favorite, I mean, my set of notes where you can get the whole thing together. Okay. So after the semester is safely over, all your exams are over and so on, then if you want to continue learning the subject, the material is organized nicely, properly, from which somebody can actually learn. In fact, a lot of material and links to video lectures also. So this is the site which I used to use till last year. And you will remember that last year also there was a lockdown, pandemic, online class, and so on. Okay. So the last 40% of the course was given in online. So those video lectures are also there. Okay. There is a lot of material. Okay. So this is the applied mathematics slides. Okay. Which are in a way, which some of which are in a way background to this course, which we have discussed earlier. Now, for these slides, corresponding NPTEL video lectures are here in general. Whichever specific slides and specific video lectures are relevant to this course, they have been indicated here. Okay. So, for example, key points of chapter 1, 2, and 3 covered in lecture 17 of that lecture set. But this you don't need because this has been covered in this semester thoroughly. Okay. And so on. Now, what we have been covering now, in which we have got interrupted, the KKT conditions, second order conditions we have discussed, and convex programming problem, sensitivity, duality, we have not covered. All that is actually in this lecture in a very neat, crisp manner. Okay, in lecture 19 of the NPTEL course. Now whatever has been mentioned as chapter 7 is actually linear programming, and chapter 8 is quadratic programming. Okay, so last time lockdown was imposed after the linear programming was over. Okay, and that is there in lecture 2020 of the NPTEL course, and quadratic programming was covered last year in this manner, online lecture. Okay, so that lecture you can get, and the corresponding notes, some of it here, some of it here, and so on. Okay. In fact, you can see how this notes has been prepared in 2 parts or 3 parts or whatever it is. Say, this is what we have been covering now. So this we have covered, and the subject matter of that is in these slides of the applied mathematics slide set. Then constraint qualification and tangent subspace, active set, slack variable strategy, first order necessary conditions. These are in these slides of that applied mathematics slide set. Then the convex programming problem is in slides 33 to 36 of this current document. Okay, as you go in the current document down, you will find this is 33. Okay, slide 33. This is 34 and so on. Okay, so like this it has been organized. So wherever the current document slide numbers are referred, they are referred in this kind of elliptic or circular kind of enclosure, and the applied math, say for example this slide 37. Okay, the rectangular slide numbers with different color refer to the applied mathematics slides. Okay, so this is the assembly which is difficult in an online delivery. Okay, so now, so this is the repository till 2020, last year. Okay, so after that, all those 4 classes of methods, several methods have been covered in further lectures over weeks 9, 10, 11, and so on. Okay, including some advanced topics. And the new repository, which is now under development, is what you have gone through. Okay, so this is the 2021 material which you have gone through to a good extent. So these are the lectures which I have worked out nicely in this table. Okay, so part 3 is unconstrained multivariate optimization. These are the topics that we have covered till now. Then part 4, constraint multivariate optimization, starts. These 3 lectures were in the last cache, after which we have stopped. So these are blank, these are not covered. And what I am doing now is actually here. Okay, this is the material, and here I will upload this particular YouTube lecture. These are the earlier YouTube lectures that these are the YouTube lectures. Okay, so everything has been linked here. Now let us come back here. So what I intend to do is that the rest half of the course also, like this, at my own time, I will cover in small lectures, the way till now we have covered 24 lectures. Like that, the rest of the lectures also, in the appropriate, in that continuation, I will cover slowly and go on putting in this repository. Okay, in this manner, I will try to organize so that it is useful for future students and you also. Okay, so till that time, for the second half, this repository is operational and this repository is under development, which will be the new version, for which half is ready. Okay, actually a little more than half is ready, but that's a different thing. Now, examination. Let us discuss this point a little with cold blood, cool mind and cold blood. There will be no real difference between the regular NSEM exam and makeup exam. This point you should understand thoroughly. Okay, so during this weekend, I will actually set 2 parallel question papers as equivalent as possible, and then I will conduct the exam on the stipulated date. Okay, that is Monday morning, the first slot itself. And then this time it is almost sure that some people will have to take the makeup exam, and that is why makeup exam will be not something like uh, exception handling, but it is something like an expected thing this time. Okay, so after that, the makeup exam, some people will be there to take that. That will be conducted in due course of time, and I will submit the grades all together. Therefore, there is no compulsion for you to take the exam this Monday. Okay, if you are actually suffering from COVID, make note of that point particularly. Okay, so why I am putting this much stress on that is that if you are recuperating from disease, and yet in order to take the regular exam, in order to make it a point to take the regular exam rather than makeup exam, if you try to take it on 3rd May, then you cannot take the makeup exam. Even if you spoil your 3rd May exam, you cannot take the makeup exam in that case. So if you are suffering from COVID or some other ailment, and if you are actually not in a position to take the exam, then you make the appropriate paperwork with the academic section and don't take it on 3rd May. Don't spoil your exam. Because if you take it on 3rd May, then during makeup exam, you will not get a second chance. Okay? I mean, that is according to institute rules. You cannot say that I will appear in this also, I am appearing in that also, whichever gives me more marks. No, that is not fair. Okay? So you will take one exam, either this one or the makeup exam. So if you are actually ill, then don't force yourself to take this 3rd May exam and spoil your exam. Okay? On the other hand, if you are well on 3rd May, then don't try to make excuses to postpone it, that after 2 weeks I'll do better. No, don't do that. Because you see, if you are well now, then you don't know whether you will be well after 2 weeks. Time is bad. Okay? So if you are well now, you take it. On the other hand, if you are not well, then don't spoil your exam. Take the makeup exam. Do the paperwork necessary for that. Okay? So now, in terms of this course, you could say that you being well now should be considered as a necessary and sufficient condition to take the exam now. Okay? So decide based on your own assessment of your health and circumstances. If you feel that you are well now, then take it now. On the other hand, if you are actually not well now, then don't force yourself. This will damage your, performance credit rating. Okay. So be careful. So you have to decide whether you are well or not, whether you are going to take the exam or not. Okay. This point I have already covered. That suggestions and appeals of easy questions and lenient grading, all that is fine, but do not even think of cheating or consultation during exams. Just do your normal job normally and let me do my normal job normally. You operate like sincere students. You do not try to do some hanky panky. And let me do the work of a teacher, and let me not go to do policing and catch thieves. It's very painful. It hurts. Okay. So do your job normally and let me do my job normally. Fine. Now, this is important. I will try to set a question paper for 90 minutes and I will give you 2 hours at the end, till the end. Okay. So after 2 hours, there is no possible submission. So basically, after 90, you put an alarm of 90 minutes, and after 90 minutes are over, then you try to wind up things, scan your work into a single PDF, and submit it, preferably when 5-10 minutes are left for 120 minutes. Because in the last 5-10 minutes, in the tense mode, you will not be able to do a sensible thing and you might end up messing up. Okay. So I am trying to set the question paper for 90 minutes. So put an alarm of 90 minutes before you start the exam. Okay. And after 90 minutes, when the alarm rings, then you wind up and settle things. Fine. So, And I claim that a 90 minutes exam, 2-hour exam is sufficient for me to judge who has learned how much. I don't need more than that, longer than that exam. And therefore, there is no point in oppressing you people and oppressing myself also. Okay? So it's useless, particularly in this kind of an environment. Okay, one thing is very clear, that proofs and derivations will not be asked. It doesn't make sense because the entire material is there in the internet, in the books, everywhere. In my lecture notes, the whole thing is. So it will be typically problem solving, and in that spirit, you have to go about it. Okay. So now, this is something which is actually not part of the semester, but it is actually a little out of the way chat. Now, the set of slides developed and used in this semester for optimization and still under development, as I told you, is richer and better than anything that I have seen on this subject. In particular, it is better than my own previous set of slides and notes. However, the issue is that it is still not a world-class set of slides, which was my original plan. For example, the applied mathematics slides, which I showed you, they are world-class slides. Okay, I mean, it's not boasting. People from the world have told me. Okay? So I intended to make the optimization slides like that, world-class slides. And the quality of the slides is very good till now, except that they are still not really world-class because of the poor hand-drawn figures and less number of figures. I would love to have some more figures, which will be more explanatory, clearer, and I would like them to be nice computer drafted figures. So now after the semester, I will be in the lookout for volunteers for some good quality computer drafting of these figures, the alternative figures, to replace them, and some new figures will get added. So if some of you want to help in that, then volunteer for that job, that task in June. However, during the entire month of May, keep quiet on that. Even if you have made up your mind that you will help me in getting those figures perfect, right now you don't open your mouth. Keep your mouth shut during May, and then in June you tell me. You drop a mail to me saying that, sir, you said this in the last closure lecture. I am ready to draw some figures for you. So tell me which figures you want. So tell me that in June if you want to do that. Why not in May? Because during May, till I submit your grades, there is a conflict of interest. Okay. I don't want anybody to volunteer for my work and then I feel a soft corner for that student. I don't want any such thing. And therefore, for myself, I have made this policy of discipline that anybody who volunteers before June, I will not accept his or her service for this task. So let me make that very clear. Okay. So if you want to help in some of the figures, then let me know in June, and then we will see what can we do in this. Okay, so with this, I'm closing this. I think I have covered all the aspects that are important at this stage. Most importantly, remember this thing, that do not take unnecessary risk in appearing in an exam in an ill condition. Don't do that. Okay. Because if you are ill now, then chances are high that you will be well after 10 days. Okay, that is how the current pandemic operates. Okay, so I think I stop here and wish you the best in the exams. The first slot is this exam. So in this, I wish you well, and I wish you well in the other exams. Thank you.